Okay, this is a pretty straightforward job. It should go pretty quick. We're going to remove the rotor. Well, we're going to remove the caliper, brake pads, and we're going to take the mounting bracket off, and we're going to take the rotor off, and we're going to walk through adjusting the emergency brake. So, pretty quick job. It's not real in-depth. You're going to need a 9/16" wrench to remove the caliper. You're going to need an 18mm wrench to remove the mounting bracket. Wait, picked up the wrong one. 19mm wrench to remove these bolts back here. That's going to get the caliper off. I've already gone through and loosened the bolts, so I'm just going to take them out by hand. That is one of your caliper bolts. The other one's down here. Pretty easy. Remove that. Then the whole caliper should come right off. Boom. Too easy. Stick that over there for now. Storing it. There's your brake pads, 1 and 2. Brake pad off. Remember, when you're changing your pads, that goes against the rotor, not that. I've seen that too many times. So here's one pad, second pad comes right out. Real easy. Now we'll take off the mounting bracket. This is these two 19mm bolts. Already loosened them, so then they'll come right out by hand. There's one, and then there's two. Let's see, the housing's already trying to fall off on me. Like noisy. Gets that bolt out, whole housing comes off. Oh, the housing is what's going to hold your brake pads, so we'll just take a look at it real quick. You got grooves here and here, so when you put the brake pad in, you're going to just stick it into the groove like that, and it's going to slide right into place. It's real easy. And that's how the brake pad sits inside of the housing. Now, to remove the rotor. Now that we got the housing off, there's nothing obstructing the rotor. And they get a little bit seized on there because of all the brake dust, so what you need to do is take a hammer, hit here, hit around here, one side, grab a hold here, wiggle it a little bit, spin the whole thing around. Hit it again here and here and here, wiggle it, keep wiggling it, and eventually the entire rotor will come off of the car. Now I already took it off, so a lot of the brake dust as well right there on the ground. But here you have your hub, bearing assemblies back behind there. You have 1, 2 brake pads for the emergency brake. So if your emergency brake, you're pushing your brake pedal down and your emergency brake isn't holding the car still like it used to, you may need to come in here and adjust it. In order to adjust it, I've got mine adjusted all the way in right now, so when I put on my emergency brake pedal, it literally does nothing at all. So what we're going to do is adjust it. You're going to have to pull this spring down a little bit with your fingers, and then you're going to spin this right here. It's hard to do with one hand. Let me see if I can get it where you can see it. Alright, there you can see that spinning. You'll see it's opening up right there. And what it's doing is it's just moving the two brake pads away from each other a little bit. And you want to adjust it. I wouldn't adjust it all the way out, but just a little bit. And then it's kind of a feel thing, so you know, you're going to see how it feels. But that's it right there. That will adjust your parking brake. So you can get less parking brake or more parking brake, depending on how far you unscrew this thing, because you're going to open up the gap there. So whatever you do on one side, you want to make sure you do it on the other side. so that it's pretty uniform, so you're not holding all the weight on one side of the car. And that's pretty much it for the rear. I'm gonna leave it adjusted kind of like that right now. The reverse order, you're gonna put your rotor back on. It's hard to do with one hand. Okay, there we go. Rotor back on. Push it all the way down. It's gonna move around, okay, until it gets seated with your lug nuts and everything else on it. You take the housing, reconnect the housing bracket. We're going to do this just so you can see how you're going to put the brake pads in. So I'm just going to hand tighten that one down. The other one goes in right there. Make sure the housing is lined up or you'll be twisting that screw forever and it ain't going to go anywhere. So that's in. Alright, so we just hand tightened both of these bolts. So now your mounting for your brake pads is back on. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your brake pads, you get them in the box, right? You get a set of them. This is the side that goes against your rotor. That. Alright, we're gonna go ahead and put the brake pads back on now. This is a pretty simple job. This is gonna be your setup. You've removed the caliper, taking the old brake pads off. Now you're gonna put the new brake pads on. This is as far as you're gonna have to go when you're doing a brake job. You won't have to remove any of this just to replace your brake pads, just your caliper. So 2 9/16 bolts come out, slide the caliper off, pull the brake pads out, get your new brake pads. Remember, this is the side that goes against the rotor. This is the side that gets the pressure from your caliper and your piston. So we're going to start here on the front side. The roundness here of your rotor, you want to match that up with your brake pad. That is roundness towards the outside, roundness towards the outside. You're going to slide it right in that slot right there. Get that piece in that slot right there, push it in. Front brake pad is in. Now for the rear brake pad, same deal. That towards the rotor. Go right there in that slot right there. Find the slot up top. Slides right into place. There you go. Now your brake pads are in. Now all you're going to do is take your caliper, piston on the back side, put your piston against the brake pad in the back, and just cradle it over the top. The caliper is back in place. Now you're going to take the 2 9/16 inch caliper bolts. So slide in right there. Comes into the caliper. It's going to actually threads into this part here, but the caliper itself holds it on. So let's see, get it in place, tighten it down. Help if I turn it the right way. So you got one in, grab your other 9/16 inch caliper bolt, put it in there, slide it through that little rubber piece there. Well, there we go. Tighten it down, and there you go. Both of them are in, and just hand tighten. You're going to want to make sure you tighten it down a little bit better than that. You don't have to tighten the crap out of it, but tighten it down a little bit better than that. And then don't worry too much about these, because the first time you push the brakes, it's going to pull the caliper this way. So those are gonna straighten out. They'll be back where they belong, like that. I don't have the torque specs on it right now, but you should always find out what your torque specs are. You can Google that junk, find out what they are, torque those down, torque your caliper housing bolts down, and that's it. You're basically done. Changed your brakes. On this car, you don't really have to you don't have to bleed the brakes, because you don't have to open the system at all. Like, you don't have to drain any fluid out. You should be able, I've done these with brand new brake pads. You just push the caliper back on and kind of work it a little bit, and it'll compress that piston in the back enough where you can slide this bad boy right on. It helps to take the cap off of your brake fluid container up front, and it helps relieve a little pressure, so you can compress that a little bit if you need to. If you have to put a clamp on the piston itself and clamp it to the rotor or to the caliper and squeeze it down a little bit so you can get a little bit more room in there to stick that thing on there. But like I said, you shouldn't have to bleed the brakes at all. You should just be able to pull the caliper off, brake pads off, new ones on, put the caliper back on, tighten everything back up. That's basically it right there. So we took off your caliper, your housing, your mounting bracket, your rotor. We adjusted the parking brake and then put it all back together. But like I said, all you gotta do is take this off if you want to just change brake pads. If you don't want to do anything else, you just need to take this off, change your brake pads, put it back on, tighten it up, and you're good to go.